Ever find yourself scrolling through endless online courses, wishing there was a guide to help you pick the good ones?
Yeah, it's like information overload, right?
Yeah, and then you get those that look super flashy, but you get 5 minutes in and it's snooze fest central.
That's why we are diving deep into how to make e-learning content that actually works. Stuff that makes you want to stick around and learn something new. We've got a ton of resources that we're going to unpack today.
Perfect. So no more falling asleep at the keyboard. Let's get into it.
First up, how to structure an e-learning course for maximum impact. It's all about the foundation.
Okay, so break it down for me. What's the secret sauce of a well-structured e-learning course?
Imagine walking into a library, but all the books are just tossed everywhere.
Total chaos. Where do you even start?
Right. Now picture that same library, but every book is in its place. Easy to find and browse. That's what a well-structured e-learning course should feel like.
So it's all about making it easy for people to find what they need.
Think clear learning objectives, bite-sized modules, a RAID map that guides you through the material.
So you're not just throwing information at people and hoping something sticks. There's an actual method to the madness.
Exactly. And a clear structure helps everyone, both the learner and the creator. It makes the content more digestible, easy to navigate, and helps people track their progress.
Have you ever taken a course where you're just completely lost, not sure what you should be doing or where you are in the learning journey?
I have, and honestly, it just makes me want to quit. That usually means the structure is all over the place.
Total motivation killer.
Now, from the creator side, a good structure makes updating the course content so much easier.
It's like having a blueprint to keep everything organized. You know where everything goes.
Spot on. Now, on top of structure, our sources also say that tailoring content to the specific audience is key.
Right, because everyone learns differently, and no two learners are exactly alike. So how do we make sure we're reaching the right people with the right information?
It's like choosing the right tool for the job.
You wouldn't use a hammer to, screw in a light bulb.
Exactly. You need to figure out who your audience is, their background, their goals, their current knowledge. What are they coming into this with?
So if I'm designing a course, what kind of questions should I be asking myself about my audience?
Think about their pain points, their motivations,
Yeah.
their level of understanding. Are you talking to seasoned pros or total beginners? And if you're signing up for a course, ask yourself, does this align with what I know already and where I want to go?
Basically, make sure it's the right fit for you.
Precisely. And it's interesting how often e-learning gets compared to traditional training methods. Our sources touched on this too.
Yeah, I've always wondered about that. What are the biggest differences? Why should we even care?
Well, our sources highlighted the flexibility and cost-effectiveness of e-learning. Just imagine, you are a company with people all over the world.
Getting them all in one room for training, the logistics would be insane.
Not to mention the cost.
Flights, hotels, printing materials, it adds up quickly.
E-learning basically throws all of that out the window. Learn at your own pace, from anywhere, with an internet connection.
One source mentioned that companies switching to e-learning could save up to 50% on their training costs. That's wild.
It is. And you save time too. You can skip over stuff you already know and focus on what you need to learn.
Win-win for everybody. But let's be real, even if it's convenient and cost-effective, e-learning has got to be engaging, right?
You are absolutely right.
Because who hasn't started an online course only to find themselves scrolling through their phone 5 minutes later? We need that secret sauce to keep people glued to the screen.
And our sources have the answer. Interactivity. Make the learning experience interactive.
So we are talking about more than just the standard lectures and slides.
Exactly. We're taking inspiration from games.
Oh, like video games.
Yeah, those games you just can't put down. They tap into that human desire for challenges, rewards, even a little friendly competition.
Makes sense. So we can use those same principles to make learning more fun.
Exactly. Our sources talked about quizzes that are more like brain teasers, polls to get people sharing their opinions, even virtual badges and leaderboards.
I've seen that in some courses. It's kind of cool. It makes you feel like you're actually achieving something.
It definitely adds a layer of engagement.
Yeah.
Have you come across any good examples of this gamification in action?
Oh, yeah. I took this cybersecurity training that was like a detective game. I had to spot phishing emails and stuff. It was way more fun than just reading about it.
I love that. And the best part is that this interactive approach can cater to different learning styles. Some people learn best by doing, others by seeing, some by discussing.
So it's like a multi-pronged attack on boredom.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, let's shift gears to the platforms that house these courses. There are so many out there. What are some key things to look for when choosing one?
That's a good question because it can get overwhelming. It's like, where do you even begin?
Start with user-friendliness. The platform should be easy to use for both creators and learners.
It should be intuitive.
Like those apps you use every day that just make sense. You don't want to spend hours figuring out how the platform works.
Absolutely. And what about the features? What are some of the must-haves?
Definitely robust admin tools, especially for complex courses with multiple modules, assessments, interactive elements.
So the creators have everything they need to manage the course effectively.
Exactly. You need granular control over everything, user permissions, content scheduling, you name it.
Makes sense. And how about tracking learner progress? Can you do that on these platforms?
Absolutely. Analytics dashboards are key. You want to be able to see how people are doing, spot areas where they might be struggling, make sure the course is actually effective.
Data is power.
For sure. And some platforms even have API integrations. You can connect to other tools like your CRM or marketing automation.
Okay, now we're getting fancy.
Yeah, but that level of integration can be really powerful for businesses looking to streamline things.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, content is king.
Couldn't agree more. You can have the best platform in the world, but if the content is terrible, no one's going to care.
You could have all the bells and whistles, but it's the content that makes or breaks the experience.
How many times have you clicked through a course where the slides are just lifeless?
Oh, countless times. It's like watching paint dry.
So how do we make sure our e-learning content is actually engaging and effective?
You've got to apply instructional design principles. It's about understanding how people learn and creating content that aligns with that.
It's more than just dumping information on people.
Exactly. You wouldn't teach someone to ride a bike just by lecturing them about physics, right?
I'd probably fall flat on my face.
You'd start with the basics, break it down into manageable steps, give them clear instructions and feedback, and gradually increase the difficulty.
Just like with e-learning, you've got to guide them through the process.
And make it interactive. We talked about quizzes and games earlier, but what are some other ways to spice things up?
Get me with your best ideas.
Multimedia is your friend. Ditch the walls of text and bring in videos, audio clips, interactive simulations, even VR if you're feeling ambitious.
VR, that's next level. But I love the idea of mixing up the formats, keeping people on their toes.
It keeps things fresh, and it caters to different learning styles. Some people are visual learners, others auditory, some learn best by doing.
Right, and what about real-world examples? That always helps me connect with the material.
Definitely. Make the learning relevant. Show people how this knowledge applies to their lives, their work. Case studies, scenarios, even role-playing activities can work really well.
It makes it more relatable, helps people see why they should care.
Exactly. And visuals, visuals, visuals.
Can't forget those. A good infographic can make complex information so much easier to grasp.
I'm a visual learner myself. Visuals can make abstract ideas more concrete, break down processes, and most importantly, help people remember what they've learned.
Do you have any stats on that? I always hear that we retain more information when we see it.
I do. Research shows we retain about 80% of what we see and do, compared to only 20% of what we read.
Wow, that's a huge difference.
And after 3 days, visuals outperform text by 65% when it comes to remembering information.
Okay, that settles it. Visuals are not just for decoration, they are a necessity.
And these days, you don't need a huge budget to create them. There are so many tools and resources out there that are easy to use and affordable.
So no more excuses for boring e-learning content.
Exactly. Now, let's move on to quizzes. They're a classic part of e-learning, but often done wrong.
What do you mean? Quizzes are just there to test if you are paying attention, or...
Not necessarily. Our sources emphasize that quizzes should be more than just rote memorization.
So they should be more challenging.
Think critical thinking and application of knowledge. Instead of asking, what is the capital of France? Ask questions that require people to analyze, problem solve, apply the concepts to real-world situations.
So more like, how would you use your knowledge of French history to navigate a business deal in Paris?
Exactly. Make them think, make them apply what they've learned.
I like that. Turns a quiz into an actual learning experience.
Right. And mix up the question types. Don't just stick to multiple choice.
What else can you do?
You could have open-ended questions, scenario-based questions, even problem-solving tasks where people have to come up with a solution.
Oh, that's a good one.
And always provide feedback. Explain why an answer is right or wrong, offer suggestions for improvement. It's all about learning, not just getting a grade.
Makes sense. After diving into all this, it makes me think about creating my own e-learning course.
It's crossed my mind, too. There's something pretty cool about sharing your knowledge with the world, but it does feel a little intimidating.
I get it. It's like a massive project.
It's like writing a book or producing a movie.
Totally.
Yeah.
And speaking of production, our sources also talked about the cost of creating e-learning content. It's something to keep in mind.
Definitely need to have realistic expectations going in.
So, what are the biggest factors that affect the cost?
Time is a huge one. Creating a high-quality course takes a lot of time and effort.
Makes sense.
You've got to do the research, write the content, create all the multimedia elements, test everything, make revisions. It adds up.
And then there's the software and tools you might need.
Oh yeah, you might need video editing software, graphic design tools, screen recording software, maybe even a learning management system if you're hosting it yourself.
Right, right. And sometimes it makes sense to outsource some of the work.
Exactly. Like, if you're not a video editor or a graphic designer, it's probably better to bring in someone who knows what they're doing.
I mean, it's like building a house. You can DIY some parts, but sometimes you need to call in the pros.
100%.
Mm.
And just like with building a house, you need a budget. Figure out how much you can realistically spend before you get started.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the excitement and forget about the practical side of things.
We've all been there. But trust me, a little planning up front can save you a lot of stress and money in the long run.
So for someone who is just starting to explore e-learning, what's the biggest lesson to take away from all of this?
For me, it's remembering that e-learning is a craft. It's an art and a science. It's not just about slapping together some slides and calling it a day.
There's an art to it.
It's about creating an experience,
Yeah.
guiding the learner toward a specific goal.
You're crafting a journey.
And like any craft, it takes time, dedication, and a willingness to learn and experiment.
And to keep improving, right? Always be iterating based on the feedback you get.
You got it. The best e-learning creators are the ones who never stop learning themselves.
It's like a continuous feedback loop. So as we wrap up this deep dive, is there one thing that stood out to you today that you'll be applying to your own work or learning moving forward?
Honestly, that statistic about how much we retain from visuals just blew me away.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that visuals aren't just window dressing. They're essential for effective learning. I'm going to be much more mindful of incorporating visuals into everything I do, from presentations to even just emails.
A well-placed image or infographic can really make a difference. As for me, I'm going to pay more attention to the structure of courses I take. Does it have a clear roadmap, well-defined modules, a logical flow? Those are the things I'll be looking for.
Those are all excellent points. And before we sign off, I wanted to leave our listeners with one final question to ponder. We've talked a lot about where e-learning is right now, but what about the future? What are you most excited about when you think about what's on the horizon?
I love thinking about the future. What trends and technologies are catching your eye these days?
I'm really intrigued by the potential of AI in e-learning. Imagine platforms that can personalize the learning experience based on your unique learning style, your pace, even your emotional state.
Whoa, like having a custom-made learning journey.
Yeah, it's like having a personal tutor in your pocket. AI has the power to revolutionize how we learn and teach.
That's amazing to think about. E-learning has come a long way, but there are still so many exciting possibilities to explore. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. We hope you learned a thing or two and maybe even got inspired to create something amazing yourself. Until next time, happy learning.